Hey, thanks so much for joining us. I'm Noelle with Resilience Paddle Sports, and we're headed to Governor's Island today to learn about oyster restoration and adopt an oyster plot with the Billion Oyster Project. Why should we care about oysters? Well, we should because the Hudson River and New York, New Jersey Harbor is an estuary. Oysters are very important to the health of the Hudson River estuary. As filter feeders, they eat phytoplankton, and in the process they filter out silts, contaminants, and other impurities, improving the water quality and keeping the ecosystem balanced. In the 17th century, New York was estimated to contain half of the oysters in the entire world. It was known as the oyster capital of the world. These folks are standing on top of a heap of oyster shells known as a midden. And that's another midden behind these people. There were so many oysters that Ellis Island and Liberty were known as Little Oyster and Great Oyster Island. Unfortunately, due to overexploitation, habitat destruction, dredging, and pollution, the oysters were wiped out. With oyster populations decimated and disease-ridden, the harvest officially ended in 1923. Okay, take two. After years of citizens' activism and estuary cleanup, enter the Billion Oyster Project. With the help of New York Harbor School students, teachers, other schools, and citizens just like you and me, the BOP aims to restore 1 billion oysters to New York Harbor. That's why we're here today, to learn how to take care of an oyster plot, to be good caretakers for baby oysters.
Black specks. I'm not sure if these actually happen. Sometimes they just condition in here, like getting the right bacterial layer for a little while. The hatchery manager's not here right now. Yeah, I think I see some.
All right, let's take a close look and see if we can see what he's talking about. Take an even closer look. All right, there it is. Believe it or not, those tiny specks are the baby oysters.
So
Let's head outside and take a look at some of the cages.
and how your pier or bulkhead situation is, you might just be able to lean over and pull it up.
Okay, these are the cages. We're trying to build the perfect home for a baby oyster. They can't just grow in the mud. They need a hard substrate to survive. They like to grow on old oyster shells, and that's exactly what we're putting inside.
You can see what those tiles look like because they've been in the water a lot longer.
Oyster reefs are perfect homes for other marine organisms, and these cages are kind of a start to that process. Lots of other creatures will be found in the cages and growing on the ropes, like these tunicates, or gastropods, like these mud snails. It's going to be our job to keep track of other organisms we find in the oyster cage. This grid can help us keep count. Buckets like this one can help us take a closer look at the organisms we find, and last but not least, we need to measure the oysters each week to see how they're growing. Okay, we're almost ready to adopt our oysters. First we need a cage, and we need some rope, and then we need some oyster shells. So these oysters are not alive. They are the base for the young oysters to grow on. Okay, we've got our cage all set up. Nice square knot tied there. I think we're almost ready to get our oysters in the water. Here's Michael from the Climate Mobilization in Hoboken displaying our new oyster cage. Each oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water per day. And if we get 1 billion in the harbor, that would filter all the water in the harbor every 3 days. And that's really good news for all the species that depend on the estuary, including people, especially those that like to get out and paddle. So come help us. We need volunteers who are ready to jump right in and be a hero for the Hudson River estuary.